In a political landscape where the line between national interest and foreign influence often blurs, a seismic shift is beginning to rattle the foundations of the American establishment. C. Crow, reporting for the MeidasTouch network, delivers a blistering critique of the current state of U.S. foreign policy and internal decay of the Democratic Party. The narrative begins with a gut-wrenching account of Sumaya, a young girl whose life was shattered when Israeli forces killed her father, a tragedy framed not as an isolated incident, but as a symptom of a broader, American-funded campaign of violence across Gaza, the West Bank, and Lebanon. Crow argues that the United States is currently entangled in an illegal war choice against nations like Iran and Lebanon, allegedly at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu's influence over American leaders, including Donald Trump. The financial and human costs described are staggering. A burn rate of $2 billion a day for $100 million in lost aircraft and thousands of casualties. Yet, despite this mounting toll, the report highlights a jarring disconnect within the Democratic National Committee, DNC. Rather than pivoting toward peace or oversight, the DNC recently killed a resolution aimed at condemning the influence of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, and punted on proposals to recognize a Palestinian state or condition military aid. This refusal to break ties with dark money is presented as a potential fatal blow to the party's integrity. Representative Ro Khanna emerges as a lone voice of dissent in this narrative, calling out the DNC for being dangerously out of touch. Khanna points to the $14 million AIPAC funneled into Illinois primaries as evidence of a vicious, corrupt cycle of corporate influence. He asserts that any future leader of the party must reject AIPAC money and oppose further military aid to Israel, a stance that aligns with the shifting American electorate but remains anathema to the party's old guard. The statistical evidence provided paints a grim picture for the political establishment. According to Pew Research, 60% of Americans now hold an unfavorable view of Israel, a number that has climbed sharply since 2022. Even within the Jewish community, the data reveals a significant rift. 56% of U.S. Jews reportedly have little to no confidence in Benjamin Netanyahu. These shifts in public sentiment are not reflected in the actions of leaders like Chuck Schumer, whom Crow accuses of parroting AIPAC talking points, while the Democratic Party's favorability ratings sink into the sewer. The internal polling is perhaps the most damning. Currently, 74% of the general public believes congressional Democrats have the wrong priorities. Even more startling is the dissatisfaction within the base. 55% of Democrats or Democratic-leaning independents agree that their leaders are off track. To illustrate the severity of this decline, the report compares net approval ratings for Democratic leadership. In 2006, it was a robust plus 28. During the last midterm, it held at plus 19. Today, it has plummeted to a dismal minus 4. This bottoming out suggests that the party is no longer just fighting Republicans, but is also at war with its own constituents. The friction between the establishment and the grassroots is personified in a confrontation between Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin and a college student. When questioned about $4.5 million in donations from pro-Israel lobbies, Slotkin is accused of gaslighting the student by equating criticism of the Israeli government with anti-Semitism. Crow rejects this framing, insisting that questioning war crimes is a matter of objective fact, not prejudice. Ultimately, the fatal blow discussed is the impending wave of primary challenges. True progressives like Melissa Bird in Oregon are stepping up to offer an AIPAC-free alternative, advocating for a complete overhaul of the system, from universal health care and renewable energy to the abolition of ICE. The report concludes that while Republicans may lead in corruption, the Democratic establishment's reliance on corporate donors and dark money is an unsustainable betrayal of the voters. By focusing on the human stories of those suffering abroad and the statistical revolt at home, Crow makes the case that the era of incremental change is over. The sea change has already begun.